We are live. See, I added the fireworks effects myself. They should have something there. They should have something. Welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone who's going to be stopping by live today for our, what we're calling Book of Boba Fett pre-show kind of party. It's been a while since we've had a chance to stream this group. We have the holiday season that just wrapped up, but with Book of Boba Fett coming out tomorrow, we wanted to just sit down, the three of us, talk about our expectations, excitement for the show. As this week kicks off, it's going to be, I think, the big ticket item everyone's going to be excited for. So we couldn't wait to give you guys a little bit of a preview of our thoughts, and we're very excited. So without further ado, let's go around the pyramid, the triangle, the upside down triangle, introduce everyone, and let us know how your holidays went. Let's go start with you, Timeline. What's going on? How was the holiday season?
What's up, guys? Yeah, holidays have been good. It's always a pleasure to see family, and it's nice to have at the end of the year Star Wars new content, because that's the whole point, right? It brings family together. So it was just, family getting together, sitting down with each other, saying, I love you, I appreciate you, it's good to have you. I hope you guys had the same. It's like, these past 2.5 years, everybody knows has been like a little bit of a nightmarish dream, but it brings you a peace of mind where like, hey, I got my family, I got my loved ones over here, and I got something to look forward to over here, which is Star Wars, and it's always great. How about you, Cody?
I had a pretty nice, relaxing time. I got myself a nice 3-day weekend. I just decided to relax the whole time. I didn't get to see as much family as I was hoping to, but that happens sometimes. I did get to try duck for the first time.
Ah,
that was actually really good.
Right.
But as great as Christmas Day was, we all know. Let me wait till I come back. Christmas for us is starting tomorrow morning.
Really?
That's right. Well, it's Boba Fett. It's Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, right.
That is what starts Christmas.
That's the real Christmas morning. Well, I'm glad you guys had a good one. I hope everyone who's watching this, whenever you do, had a great time off as well. I totally want to piggyback off what Timeline said, and I totally agree with. I really love the end of the year Star Wars content launch. We had this last year with the High Republic, where January kind of kicked off a new initiative. We're getting that here now with Book of Boba Fett coming at the end of the year, and the High Republic in January. So we're getting both. But I do love that you kind of go to the holiday season and you come out with something new and exciting to dive into. And this is a big one. I think this was high on a lot of folks' lists of most anticipated Star Wars shows, or, Star Wars dream Star Wars, properties or live action content we could have asked for. This is a big one. And as part of this conversation, it's going to be very free form. For any folks who are watching live, feel free to put your thoughts as we're talking about, how you feel about the show. Because what I wanted to start was kind of just putting this show into context, what it means, how crazy it is that we're here with the show. So most folks have heard my background on this. I'm not going to just continue to beat this story over the head. But growing up as a very young fan, Jango Fett and Boba Fett, I thought were like the coolest thing ever. I had the foam Nerf pistols. I had the plastic, blue and silver Jango Fett mask. The asteroid chase scene with the awesome sonic charges were some of my, because I was young when those movies came out, and those things really hit me in the feels. I thought that was so cool. This mysterious, silent kind of gunslinger characters. I was so angry when both of them died, really sadly. Both of them did. But they were a huge part of kind of piquing my interest in Star Wars. And had you have told me those 20 years ago, or how many years ago it was, that, I'd be sitting there in 2021 getting ready for a live action series for like probably 7+ hours maybe of Boba Fett content, I wouldn't have believed you. It would have just not have been possible. And so I think it is such a cool thing that we have this year. And I will be curious to hear from you guys, your experience, number one. But for the folks who've been fans even longer than me, right, who are older and have seen this character all the way back when Empire Strikes Back came out, I'm sure this is kind of surreal, like kind of such a silly thing to find us in. So I'm very excited for the show. It's crazy to me we're getting it. I mean, it sounds like it's always been rumored, like, oh, we're going to get a Boba Fett movie or show or whatever. And to be hours away, I think is really exciting. Let's start at the bottom of the pyramid this time with Star Wars Complete. Give us your thoughts. I mean, what does this show mean to you? What's your history with the character? I just would love to hear, if you're where you stand on it.
Yeah, I'm definitely like at the bottom of the line excited for the show more than anything. But I find it interesting. You mentioned that you had the silver and blue plastic mask, and it unlocked a memory that in the first grade, I was Jango Fett for Halloween. And also two of my friends were. So we all had the same costume, and it was great. As far as Boba Fett goes, like I always thought he was a cool character, and I might be in the smaller group of people here, but I didn't have a problem with his death to begin with. Everyone was like, you got the baddest dude in the galaxy, and he goes out like this. And I was like, that's about how this works. You know, like think of like any big cinema character or any big person in reality, you know, like Al Capone, very big mobster. He was arrested for tax fraud. That's not very, it's not very high and mighty, you know, like, and it's like Scarface, you know, he had a giant empire. He got shot in the back. So like, just because you're this big, well-known bounty hunter doesn't mean you're going to go out in a blaze of glory, you know? So, but seeing that he comes back, even like in books and now again in canon, like I'm excited to see like what he can actually do. And it just adds to his story that, you know, he was the baddest dude. He escaped the Sarlacc pit, something you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Well, timeline, you probably went the character longer than any of us. Where are you at? I mean, how cool is this for you? Or did you ever care? Is this just something unexpected?
So you guys know my story, right? I grew up with Star Wars, with the original trilogy as a kid in the 80s. Got my first VCR on the street, and all the kids were enjoying it. 97 in my crib, man. It was something special to be able to share with other friends. But surprisingly, for me as a kid, I had no memories of Boba Fett as a character. It was just like this cool-looking prop, right, in Jabba palaces. Because, right, that's what both Jabba's palace and the famous cantina scene have. They're populated with these strange-looking creatures and characters. Somebody looks like a pilot, right? Somebody looks like some bounty hunter, gunslinger, like you mentioned on High. And I never considered him. He's not a character. He's just there. He's a prop. And then he dies in the most goofy, silly way, where Han Solo goes like, "Hey, where? Boba Fett, where?" And it's like a slapstick humor. He slams against the barge, and he's there in the Sarlacc pit. Come the Clone Wars show. And we're now getting the face of Boba Fett, right? Obviously the prequel films, they're putting a face on him. They are humanizing him. And the question is, should you humanize or put face on every single badass or villain out there? Probably not. I have like a whole video, an argument based around Darth Vader, how I felt he was significantly diminished as a villain when you unveil his mask and show his background and story. With Boba Fett, I felt quite different because prior to that point, he's literally nothing. He wasn't even a point of interest for me. He was just there, like, okay, just another guy in the movie. And when we see him in the Attack of the Clones, in the feature film, right, the second prequel movie, Temuera Morrison's scenes were some of my favorite in that entire trilogy. For some reason, when the camera is on him and when Obi-Wan Kenobi is interrogating him, he's like, "Hey, have you been as close around his Coruscant?" There's some gravitas in that scene where it pulled me in. I'm like, "Oh, who is this guy? Oh, I know the actor. Is that Temuera Morrison?" And from that point forward, I feel like now we first got the Clone Wars show, and now we're getting the Boba Fett television series. Through Temuera Morrison, it's bridging the gap between two generations of fans, right? The guys who grew up before, for whom Boba Fett was this nameless character, and now for prequel fans who are like, "Hey, he's a Jango Fett's son, this and that." And through this actor, through that familiar face, to that familiar voice, we're getting something truly special here. That's where my excitement is.
It's true. I mean, and I do find it fascinating to hear from, different fans, because I do find that the reactions to be so mixed. There are people who like immediately saw that armor and was like, "What is that? I need to know what that is." And there are people who are like, "Yeah, he's just one of the mysterious looking alien guys in the background." So it is fascinating to see what that character's life has been outside of his his two short appearances in the original trilogy. So very excited for this. For me personally, this is kind of, and I think for a lot of fans, this is almost like kind of a dream situation where you never expected we'd get this. This feels very fan servicey, like they're giving us a show that we really want. I think that's really cool. And as we talk about that, let's get into maybe some of our expectations for the show. And what I mean by that is, based on what we've seen, and there's been a lot of teasers that I don't think have showed a lot. So you can, speak to those and how you feel. But more importantly, what does the show have to do for you to be a success? Like, what are you looking for? What's a successful Boba Fett show? And for the folks who are here live, feel free to let us know in the comments. We'll pull that up and discuss. I've already seen some folks, posturing about what kind of cameos we might see, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in kind of our theory section. But for me, I'll get us kicked off here with my expectations for the show. Just for everyone's knowledge, it's going to be 7 episodes. We do not know episode length. So I'm not sure if they're going to all be an hour or if they're going to do like an hour, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, right? And it's going to vary. I'll work under the assumption we're going to get roughly 6 to 7 hours of content in total, right? However it breaks out, I'm going to say roughly 6 to 7 hours. For it to be a success for me, I think this is going to sound stupid, but it needs to be well executed. I don't really have a really strong specific thing they need to achieve. Like, they better do A, B, and C. For me, whatever the director, whatever Disney and Lucasfilm, whatever story they had for Boba Fett, the first and foremost, I want it to be executed well, right? I want it to be unique and have its own kind of feel to it, its own kind of flow, and be able to earn this thing we asked for, right? When you ask for, we want to see Boba Fett, I don't want them to just throw him on the screen doing some really stupid, boring, meaningless task. And then we feel like, oh, great, that was a waste of all those years of asking. I want it to be that they had a story dedicated to this character and they're going to successfully tell us whatever narrative they've designed. I mean, that's really my bar, and it might be kind of low, but whatever you set out to do, I just hope you execute it very well. From a fan servicey perspective, of course, I'd love to see some really cool action pieces. I thought there were some really fun ones in Mandalorian season 2. Given the age of Boba Fett, I felt like they kind of kept it realistic, how he could keep up with folks still, how he wasn't, in his prime per se, but he still had years left as more of a weathered character. So I'd like them to continue that feel with the action where it feels believable and not completely over the top and like they brought in a bunch of stunt doubles and etc. But I'm going in pretty clean here, to be totally honest with you guys. I don't have, for the Kenobi show, I might have more expectations with what I want to see for that character in that time period. I feel way more open here. Like, they could give me a lot of different stories that I think could be successful. And that's kind of how I'm entering the show. What about yourself? Let's go over to timeline. Where are you at with the show? Expectations, what's successful Boba Fett show for you?
Yeah, right. So 2 different parts of the, discussion here. What do we want from it and what do we realistically expect? I expect nothing. I think it's the best way to go into a show, to not build your hype up, not to build like, well, it needs to have these requirements, fill up, A, B's, and C's, cover all the bases for me to like it. Like, I go in blind. I think I enjoyed the Clone Wars episodes with Boba Fett so much because I didn't expect them. I'm like, okay, they're bringing Boba Fett. What's the format? Is it going to be just a cameo, or are they going to just flash him around? Look, he's a cool character. Are they going to tailor him into the story? And it's exactly what happened, and I think it worked really well. Honestly, we spoke a little bit before we started this live stream. My expectation, like my pulse is like flat right now. I'm not hyped. I'm not crazed to see. I think the last Star Wars content I was really, really eager to see, I couldn't wait, was The Last Jedi. But here I'm like, okay, let's slow it down. Let's see, because The Mandalorian was also a show which I sort of set myself up for, because that trailer looked very, very gritty and dark, almost like Rogue One-ish. But when the show came out, it's a gunslinging cowboy, very on the surface, very what you see is what you get, right?
Yep.
So what I want from the show, what does it need to have to succeed to be a great, great content? Once again, I don't have any list of requirements. I think it's a little bit self-centered to say like, well, I need this show to have that, then only then it's true Star Wars. Like, you don't go into that. It's like the experiment, they play around. It's a new dish, right? I think of it as going to a new cuisine, a new restaurant. You're trying a new dish. You're either going to like it or not, but just stick with it. Enjoy it. Have fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I would like to see from the show is go beyond what we saw in Mandalorian in the way of some of it felt like it wanted immediately fans to receive it like it's a timeless classic with lines like, this is the way. Or when that guy says, I have spoken. Those lines felt so forced, like the writers of the show wanted you to gravitate and exploit and use those lines like in a meme context, which obviously we got 25 gazillion different memes on the show. I don't want that, because to me it didn't feel genuine. It's you can't make people fall in love with something. It's a very natural, organic process. And once it happens, that's when people will come back. People will quote somebody like Palpatine for prequels, like, not from a Jedi. I believe that comes from love. I think it comes from kids living and breathing these movies for so many years that it's part of your DNA as a Star Wars fan. So what I want from the show to do is, like, I'm currently watching the 3rd season of the Westworld, which is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, it's a show that you have no requirement of, or no prerequisites, because not comparable to Star Wars, but it's something so entirely new and different that you don't know which rabbit hole is going to take you down. I want the Book of Boba Fett take me down the rabbit hole and be surprising and thrilling in a way that is not expected, and has its own gravitas, has its own kind of like magnet that was like, oh man, I'd never even thought of Star Wars in such a way, but wow, what this episode is doing is kind of cool. And I think that's going to happen only if the writing and the story is strong enough and all the action makes it even better. Because if we end up with a case of really beautiful on-screen eye candy stitched together by the kind of like story elements and dialogue, it's not going to work for me. So this is where I am at. I want first and foremost like a solid story. I don't necessarily want the entire background of Boba Fett's great granddad and the whole story of the family line. But give me a little bit of context to say, like, okay, so he's not this faceless warrior that can defeat everybody. There's something going, in his mind.
No, understood.
How about you, Complete? What are your thoughts on this?
I think I'm exactly where you are with this. Like, I don't really have that many expectations for the show, mainly because I have no idea what route they're taking with the story. They've been so strategic in what they had mentioned earlier of that using only the first half of the first episode for all of the trailers and TV spots. And I feel like every 10 minutes there's another TV spot. I'm getting a little overwhelmed with that because I'm like, I don't want to watch too much stuff in case there's like one little bit of dialogue that I can take and run with. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I hate when my camera does that. I just feel like if they can just tell a really decent story, I'll be hooked from it. It doesn't have to tie into anything. It doesn't have to mention specific characters. I will say one thing that I would like to see. I'd like to see Daniel Logan come back in some capacity.
Oh, sure.
For anyone watching who doesn't know, Daniel Logan played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones. And he still like lives out that character at like Comic Cons and like visiting like children's hospitals. And I think it's really cool. So if he could come back in something, that would be kind of neat. But honestly, I think the biggest thing for me is like avoid the theories that everyone has been throwing out, because I've read many of them and I love theories. I come up with a lot of them. Sometimes they're hits, sometimes they miss. But a lot of the theories that I've seen, I'm just like, we don't need Mace Windu in this. No, that girl you saw in the trailer is not Mara Jade. Just please relax. Just watch the show and enjoy. Now, that being said, if those characters were to show up, as long as they can make it work, I'm not going to say it's a bad thing.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about theories here shortly. I have kind of a small thought on theories. We'll get into those shortly. But before we go off, I think you guys called out two things about the show that I think are on the front of my mind. Which, when it comes to the story, my expectations for this show, based on what we've seen, and as we've talked about, it's a very brief glimpse of the actual show. Like, we're not seeing a lot of the actual content for the episodes yet, which I think is a great thing. But my expectations is this is going to be a pretty small in scale story. And that doesn't mean bad. I just want to clarify that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just mean I think we're going to get a smaller scope experience here. I think it's going to be a smaller pool of characters, a more self-contained adventure. And I think that could really be a strength for the show, right? Instead of trying to introduce too many characters. We already know who Boba Fett is, right? We already know who Fennec Shand is a little bit. So we kind of have our first, main two characters established. How can we grow them right further? And I think that doesn't require a lot of moving pieces. I don't think, my current suspicion is not going to be like a planet hopping epic with, hundreds of battles, right? I think it's going to be pretty small and kind of a homey feel to it based on what we've seen. Let me ask you guys about this. From what I've seen in the show and for the marketing material, and obviously what we've even seen in the Bad Batch, it seems to me they're really trying to establish Fennec Shand as a character in this world. She was introduced in Mandalorian season 2. Then we saw her again in the Bad Batch, voiced by the actress herself, which I thought was really cool. So they're, I think, making a big push. She got her own poster with Boba Fett for this. In some of the trailers I've seen, they've really kind of focused on her and her, fighting styles and hidden blades, etc. So my expectations is Fennec Shand, they have plans for that character moving forward. What do you guys thought about Fennec Shand so far as a character? Do you want to see more, or do you think she distracts you from this Boba Fett spectacular? Just curious how this, because it's a new character. This is a net new character they've introduced to this world, and anytime you do that, it can be a challenge. So, how successful has Fennec Shand been for you guys? And do you think the show's going to spend a lot of time on her? Because I do. I tend to think she's going to be a major focus point of the show.
Take it away, complete.
Okay, so I think she's going to be a major focus point, and I think that needs to happen because she hasn't really had a lot of screen time with anything. I think it's important that she have a major role too, just because, she's getting up there with Boba Fett. Boba Fett was a notorious bounty hunter, and you're talking about someone that took on Cad Bane and won. So, that's a big deal. And I'm very interested to see what they do with her, because I still think, is she going to just remain loyal to Boba the entire time, or is there going to be a power struggle at some point?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good to keep the viewers on their toes of, okay, Boba has his plan and he thinks it's going smoothly, but what's going to happen? Is Fennec going to do something about that, or is she going to be with him the whole time?
Interesting. Yeah, I first took the character from the Mandalorian. Obviously, that's where she launched as a character. I was a bit harsh. We obviously have to be aware that Hollywood today is very much influenced by Chinese markets, right? What flies has to be on par and in line with what they want there. So they have to sell tickets, they have to sell viewership. And obviously, I think it's a good thing, but I never feel that diversity for its own sake ever works. Because the audience, the viewers are not stupid. You could have introduced an Asian actor or character and make them really, really strong. Like in the case of Rogue One, I always bring Donnie Yen in. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's Canadian Chinese, but still, he represents Chinese cinema. But they wove him into the story so well that you never question it. You know that he's not there as a commercial for Chinese markets. He kicks ass. He's part of the story. With Fennec Shand, it was a little bit different. She didn't function to any capacity in the Mandalorian show. She's just there. She does one cool jump, like that anime jump with a gun, right? She has a blasts it off, but there's not much going on. No story, no action to speak of, I remember. But I felt that they really unwrapped the character in the Bad Batch. She was really, really cool. I'm like, okay, we're finally getting another bounty hunter who is also the top of the top. That Boba Fett is not the only name to be spoken of. The Bosk, the Trandoshan we're going to talk about in this show. He's not the only one. There are other significant bounty hunters out there. It's kind of become stale when you have this one Batman-like figure like Boba Fett and nobody else can contest his power. Now we have someone else. And because of the Bad Batch, I'm now looking forward more to her. But I hope that she's not there solely for the reason of amping up Boba Fett. If you guys remember the popular video game, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, it did a really interesting plot twist where the greater portion of the game is played through the eyes of this character called Raiden and the way that he perceives Snake, and that's what gives Snake a lot of his legend. I was like, oh my God, did you know? It's Solid, it's him. Yeah. So it kind of builds that. It was done well in the game. How it's going to work in the show, it remains to be seen. I agree with you on High. She is definitely going to be a major part of this show. And I hope what she does is voice kind of like the ambitions of Boba Fett without him doing so in a major way. Because, fans expect him to be still this cold and calculating persona of not many words, right? Like his father, like we saw Jango Fett in the prequels. He's not a man of many words. He's a man of action. So what if we have this very dynamic duo where Boba Fett does, and she's the one who says, and together they work as a very strong narrative couple.
Yeah. I definitely agree with the point that I felt like in Mandalorian, I had nothing to really grab onto with the character. Like she just showed up. I was like, who is this character? I know nothing about her. I almost thought she was going to get killed off or, just be there to kind of say, hey, Boba Fett's got a little crew forming. So I was pleasantly surprised. They pulled her in Bad Batch. That was kind of cool for me to give that character more. I really enjoy the actress whose name I always forget. We just talked about it before the stream. So I'm happy she's going to continue that role. And I wanted to pull this up as we were talking. Almost every poster for the show, outside of, I think, the very first one with him in the throne, has incorporated Fennec Shand. And as you can see, this was the most recent poster, which I love this poster. I think this is a really cool poster.
Yeah, it's so dope.
And she's right there. I mean, as the left-hand man in this case with how he's facing. But I think and from what we've seen in the trailer, she is kind of like the voice. She's like the hand of the throne. Like he's sitting back on the throne and she does the intro like, hey, Boba Fett's here to make a deal with you, right? She's kind of filling that role. I'm with Complete. I do kind of wonder if they're going to pull in her ambition. They've given her in the Bad Batch and even what we saw in Mandalorian, she seems to be a good-hearted character, right? She looked out for Omega, right? She's been, kind for Grogu. So she seems to be a bounty hunter with a heart. So I don't know if maybe she's going to maybe even help Boba Fett be a little softer. Maybe she'll kind of be like maybe Boba Fett, what they'll do is Boba Fett is going to be really hardcore and Fennec Shand will be there to kind of put some sensibility into him. But I expect her to be a major part of the show is really the long and short of this. I think that's going to be the true. And I do see the Blue Pig just called out that she played a character in S.H.I.E.L.D. And we were just talking about that before the show started. So good timing there. Yeah. Good timing on that. Good timing. I do expect, too, we'll get some Fennec Shand backstory as well, because we know that she owes him something, and I'm sure we'll find out why. That to me seems like a baseline expectation there.
On high, before you take off this piece of artwork, guys, look at this piece and then go and Google 70s Westerns, right? And the posters for those. Yeah. This is like so vintage, dude.
It is. Oh my God. It is. And I see a question here from Highwire. Am I going to cover each episode? That's my plan for sure. We've talked about with these guys. I don't know. We're going to have Thursday night live stream still throughout the year, right into the new year. So I'm sure we'll talk about each episode on our weekly live stream as well, a little bit on Thursday nights. This is kind of our rare one with the holiday season. Scheduling's a little tricky, and with the show coming out, at 2 a.m., we thought it'd be kind of fun to just give you guys our thoughts before that goes live. But of course, and these guys are going to be doing reviews on their own channel, I'm sure, as well. So make sure, again, their channels are linked down in the comments as well. So I wanted to pull something up. Let me stop sharing this and pull up another image. This is something that Timeline had kind of called out to me before, and I have two different kind of images here. Let's take ourselves back to the first up here. Well, I don't know if the real first iconic look at this character, and see where we've come in this in the years from this shot in The Empire Strikes Back to where we are today. And a lot of these characters have become iconic in their own right. So first of all, let's have Timeline take us through the shot. As someone who I know is a big original trilogy fan, how did this scene hit for you? I always thought this was a really fun scene, first of all. And then I'd like to talk about it as a group. Are we going to see any of these guys popping up? I know we've seen Bosk in the Clone Wars, obviously. But are we going to see any of these iconic heroes, villains making an appearance? So Timeline, over to you. What are your thoughts on this shot from The Empire Strikes Back?
Once again, going back, tracing, my memories as a kid, it's difficult to remember my first reaction because I was so young. I was probably 7 or 8 when I saw it. And it was never a trilogy. It was just one big movie, right? So because you saw everything together as one thing. And when we saw this scene, obviously the focus of it is on Vader trying to capture Han Solo. I felt that it was just them showing us that there are more of these alien creatures and types, these shady characters in that universe. Once again, you never pay attention to any single one of them, not even Boba Fett. They're just standing there, and he's like, this is what needs to be done. And remember, before the Star Wars special editions, Boba Fett barely talks. He doesn't have any lines. He's just standing there with his rifle. so I was looking at this. I was like, oh, that kind of looks like, wait, they got a robot there that's also hunts bounties.
Yeah.
And then Dengar, obviously, with his
Yep.
wraparound thing, he looked like a Middle Eastern warrior, like a North African mujahideen or something like this.
Yep.
So he was an interesting mix of cultures almost. He got this battle armor that looks like European knight, and he has that Middle Eastern motif going there. So that was kind of cool. But as you mentioned just now, these have become all iconic characters. And I think it's very, very important to underline how much of the expanded universe of both Star Wars Legends and canon have done for these characters, right? Because we have the original comic in the 1980 from Marvel, which starts showing up. You see Dengar in there, which is the character on the left, right? The one with the wraparound.
Yep.
We're going to assume that most of you guys don't know their names. You probably do, but whatever. We're just chatting here, going from the left to right. We have Dengar, then we got obviously IG-88, we got Boba, we got the Trandoshan Bosk, which has awesome spotlights in the Clone Wars show, and of course we have the sidekick Forlum of another insectoid bounty hunter
I'm pulling him up now. I'm pulling him up.
Who is?
Oh, sorry.
Bring him in. The most
pressure.
important one.
The pressure here.
Zuckuss. So Zuckuss is also one of those guys, and I'm currently trying to catch up with the Modern Bounty Hunters comic book, which I've just finished. I moved on to the War of Bounty Hunters. It's really, really awesome to see all of these highlighted. There we go. Zuckuss, all the way on the right. A little bit cut off, but he's there. And it's you have something that originated as a single shot, a single frame in the movie, spawning a whole generation of characters.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, how far are they going to take it now? This is an opportunity of Fennec Shand to shine from somebody who was just like a stand-in in the previous show to really be highlighted and brought into focus here.
First of all, Chad is big fans of Zuckuss and Forlom. I've seen that kind of unanimously. Now, these characters appeared in the War of the Bounty Hunter comic, which I'm not caught up on. But I'm just going to say they did make appearances, several of these characters. What a lot of people have, kind of wondered, there's this interesting balance between knowing too much about a character. Sometimes it's almost better if a character is like off in the background and you never know that much about them. They're never unmasked, to your point earlier, Timeline. That we've kind of made up our own legends for them, and comics and etc. have filled in the gaps, but they're always kind of these mysterious characters who live more in our hearts than on the screen, right? You can over-explain something sometimes and ruin the kind of the mystique. So it will be an interesting balance. I'd like to see Bosk personally, just because I'd love to see. I know from the trailers we're going to get Trandoshans in the show, and I'd like to see really well executed Trandoshans from a visual standpoint is what I'm trying to get at here. Right. And I'd love to see them with the technology we have today. And I think the special effects that have been really good on the Mandalorian, that I'd love to see that translate over to this character. I think it'd be really cool to see it updated, and we're going to see Trandoshans. We've seen that in the trailer. But it'd just be kind of cool to see Bosk, hear that voice in live action from what we've seen in the Clone Wars. I think that'd be exciting for the character for sure. So wanted to go back and pay homage to the kind of original shot. And I think it's fascinating what you've just talked about there, Timeline, where one shot in a movie all those years ago has led us, the three of us, to being here right now at 11 o'clock in the morning, prepping for an entire spinoff show. It's just crazy how projects like this, can come. Anyway, I just think it's cool. Go ahead.
I mean, even then you can't even go that far without recognizing that Boba Fett's first appearance was that glorious cartoon holiday special back in 1978.
It's
crazy.
I love that armor they give him, that kind of blue and white. I've pre-ordered from like the droid show, where he's got that kind of not green and red at all. And I've Target had sold that as like a 40th anniversary thing where it has like droids on the front, and he's wearing that armor. And I pre-ordered that the second I saw it. I think that's just such a cool design. I think that's just a really fun design. See how the characters change. So let's transition a little bit to what we expect from the show, right? Because let me start off with my feelings on theories. As Star Wars fans that we all are, everyone here, we love our theories, right? We love to make them, to discuss them, to think about them, but they're a double-edged sword. And I think we've seen this where when we make theories that end up becoming better than what we'll actually ever receive. And we sometimes create unrealistic ideas and we go in wild places. And then when we actually get the actual product, it didn't meet our expectations because we've crafted all these stories. We've had all these expectations in our head. And so it can kind of set us up for failure sometimes, is what I've seen with fans. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that as well. The sequel trilogy comes to mind because, the internet was running wild with theories after The Force Awakens. And then it's like they went all sorts of different directions, love them or hate them. I think some of the fans were just kind of frustrated that they spent all this time thinking about Snoke, and then he was just disposed of like it was nothing. And I included, I was like really into Snoke when I saw him in Force Awakens. I was like, oh, this is like a whole new kind of Dark Emperor. He's got this like kyber crystal. Like, what kind of powers does he have? And like, I never feel like I got to see those on display. And part of that is simply, expectations, right? When you create expectations in your head, you can set yourself up for disappointment. So I tend to be someone, if you guys have followed my channel, I'm not a big theory guy. I'm not that creative. You got to be a creative person to have good theories. To people who make good theories, credit to you. I can speculate based on what I've seen and see what they're foreshadowing, but there are folks who make all sorts of, fascinating connections that I just am not quick enough for. So you'll never probably see me being very effective at that as some other big YouTubers are. But I will talk about what I'll call speculations and theories, and I put yours in the chat, everyone who has them for the show. One of the things people want to know, and I've seen it even in our chat right now, is what kind of cameos are we going to get? Because we've seen in The Mandalorian, they've set that expectation now, almost like a Marvel show or movie. You're getting cameos. Like, you're going to see other characters. And so people are expecting that here. We just talked about this rogues gallery of bounty hunters. Will they be the cameo? Mara Jade, I've seen those theories flying around like completely talked about as well. And big YouTubers are talking about that new mysterious side character, right? But as far as returning characters, I think the most obvious that people have asked about is Mando going to be there? Is Din Djarin going to make an appearance? I would actually be surprised. So it's interesting with Din Djarin, and I'll say this before I pass it over. Most of the time, Pedro Pascal is never in that suit, guys. He's never in that suit. He does the voiceover after the fact. So they'll have someone else in the suit embodying that character. So to get him to cameo is really not that hard. They just put the armor on some stunt double they have. He walks around, and then if they want to add a couple lines, and he doesn't say a lot anyway, which makes it easy, you have Pedro Pascal record a couple lines, add him to the episode. So he could very easily be added to the show. I would be very... I have no idea how they would tie that in. Long story short, I have no idea how they would like effectively bring him into the show, but we don't know where the show is going. But that to me seems like the most likely cameo. But it would also be kind of weird because we just saw them together in the last season. So like, I don't think I need to. If Boba Fett and Din Djarin had never crossed paths before, and this would be like their first, it'd be like, oh, but it's like, well, Boba Fett was reintroduced via the Mandalorian and Din Djarin show. So for him to come back doesn't seem necessary to me, but it seems like the easiest kind of cameo. I don't think we'll see any Jedis, just to be honest with you guys. I'd be very surprised. And that's a good thing, by the way. If a Jedi does show up, it'll catch me way off guard because I don't see that coming here. Doesn't seem like something a Jedi would concern himself with on Tatooine, some sort of, bounty hunter squabble. Doesn't really strike me. But that's kind of where I stand today, given I've seen clips of the first half of the first episode. For all I know, I'm going to laugh. We're going to come back here next week. And episode 1, like the second half, is going to be like, we uncover a secret dark side conspiracy and we have to recruit Luke and Han to fight like the return of Empire. It's going to become this like the biggest epic you've ever seen. And it's going to like completely spit in my face. But that's not what I expect today. So I would not expect a lot of cameos. That's just not where I am today. And from that perspective, I think they'll have to make it work for it to be. I don't want them to just throw people in there like, hey, there's, let's say Mace Windu is alive. Well, they better have a really cool way of bringing him in. I don't want them to be like they're at a pub and like in the background, some hooded guy, is sitting there sipping a margarita, and he, stands up with a purple lightsaber. You got to give me some interesting tie in there. I don't know. Any cameos that you guys expect on the horizon? Are we going to see some fan service moments pop up? That's become a big thing in Star Wars and Marvel. They've really started to feast on that. surprise pop-ins and characters crossing over. Are we going to see that trend continue? Complete, I'll pass it to you. What are the cameos going to be, if any?
So, blanket statement: will we have cameos? Yes. Do we know what they were? Who they're going to be? Absolutely not. And as to what you said before, like you have like the YouTubers that come up with crazy theories. I'm one of those because I just connect it to everything. It's hit or miss, and everything you just said put so much information in my mind. My brain's going a million miles a minute now.
It's fun to do.
If Din Djarin is going to make an appearance, it's going to be in the finale, or it will be mentioned in passing. Like I could see Fennec Shand coming out of like a room and being like, well, I tried to contact Din, but he's busy doing something, as just a nod to say, okay, well, he's still actively doing stuff. As far as actual cameos, I think we could see, I would go back to the Bounty Hunters. I could see us seeing Bosk and Dengar, specifically those two, because I know Dengar is in the Aftermath books, which takes place roughly just before the Book of Boba Fett. At least the first book does. So I know he's at least still around then. Cad Bane would be cool, because I know everyone's been asking for. Oh, there it is right there. Yep, Cad Bane. I mean, it would fit.
It would be kind of a cool. We haven't really seen that, and I'm totally blanking on the alien species. We haven't even seen a lot of them in live action recently, to where, it would be kind of a cool visual treat as well.
Oh, definitely. But I think one thing that I think would be really cool to see, and I think is more of a plausible expectation, is that since, Boba's trying to rise to power and he's meeting with all these other syndicates, I would love to see, because he is now back in canon, Prince Shizor.
That's what I was thinking.
That is what I want to see. Because as soon as he was mentioned in the Crimson Reign comic, and I was just like, "Yep, there we go. We're one step closer to bringing back Shadows of the Empire."
Thank you for saying that. I'm gonna take it away from you, but we want to hear.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay. So I want to take it a little bit to the opposite side, to pull it back into the Legends thing. I'm just like you. I don't like to speculate. I'm like, hey, bring whatever you want. I don't feel that Din Djarin, at least to me personally, my opinion, speaking for myself, I don't feel that he deserves a spotlight even as a cameo. Because when you have a show in which Luke Skywalker, Bo-Katan, and Ahsoka are mentioned more by the fans than the main character, that's a problem.
And Grogu.
Grogu. Yeah, Din Djarin has been completely sidelined by these cameos. And that's not a good thing. When you have these cameos popping off and disrupt the flow of the show and take down the spotlight, just like what happened with sequels, the older cast, the legacy cast, even though it was supposed to be the passing of the torch, they overshadowed the younger cast. So I don't want Din Djarin, honestly. As far as cameos go, what I think is the most plausible, realistic, and strategically viable thing to do for them to sell these characters later on in books and future shows and action figures and so on. Dengar, AG-88, and Bosk are a must. They need to be in the show, because we're now seeing more and more of a trend where the people at Lucasfilm are listening to what fans want, and they're realizing that a lot of people feel strongly that Legends has been set aside. And they've been incorporating more and more characters, story arc, lore stuff, like the recent Dives in the Force thing. That comes from the past. All of it is slowly being migrated to the current stuff. So what I want to see in the show, in terms of not necessarily Easter eggs, but something that's saying like, hey, we remember the past. Yeah. Remember the 40-year rich history of Star Wars storytelling, and a big portion of that in the Marvel comics, in the Dark Horse comics, and also in the books were the bounty hunters. So I feel if they are very daring, and if they decide to bring some prominent characters like Booster Tarek, who's this smuggler, he was the only one who owned his own Star Destroyer, which I just recently made a short video on his ship, Errant Venture, and it exploded. I have not seen so much success for my videos lately than this. I've got like almost 4,000 views. Same with Talon Karrde, obviously the smuggler who is known in the original Thrawn trilogy. Big character, and a perfect example of a character that holds his own by the strengths of the story, and not just a cool-looking, badass with a gun. And the last but not least, thank you for so much for saying it complete. Prince Shizor.
Yes.
Oh my freaking God. The ultimate leader of the Black Sun crime syndicate.
Yeah.
It's like, to be honest with you, I have nothing against Kira and the Crimson Dawn. I felt Crimson Dawn was done expertly well in the final seasons of the Bad Batch. No, I'm sorry, not
Clone
the Bad
Wars,
Batch.
yeah.
Clone Wars. I'm sorry, Clone Wars. I'm getting mixed up here. But I did not feel that Kira going against Darth Vader in a comic book and holding it her own was sensible at all. I'm like, what are you doing here? She's not even force sensitive. She's like going one for one with Darth Vader. It doesn't make any sense. Now, Prince Shizor would make all the hell of it like sense in the show because we have the Black Sun crime syndicate, which also is migrating into the new books, and people are saying yes, it's just as badass, it's just as important. And who else do you bring other than its leader? And Pauline, we have already seen them in the Clone Wars show. We're like one step away from it. I can't wait, man.
So I love those ideas, and I agree. I think bringing in the Black Sun Syndicate would be a really cool idea that could even set up future seasons for the show. So we'll dive into that in a second. But I saw kind of a debate in chat that I didn't want to disrupt. So earlier on, they were talking. We've been talking about Dengar, right? And are you guys familiar with this, both of you? Before I get into this, okay.
Were you talking about the character on the screen or something else?
Yes.
No, this is Nightmare Fuel.
Okay. So this is from the Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi Visual Dictionary. I believe it's Rise of Skywalker. And this has been long theorized to be the fate of Dengar. Now look at the name Hrothgar Dang, okay? So let's read the little snippet down here. It says Hrothgar is an old and experienced Corellian bounty hunter who is likely operating under an alias. Okay, so we know Dengar is a Corellian bounty hunter, right? So that's the first line. It says he has been subjecting himself to cybernetic replacements in a poorly planned bid to live and work forever. As age began to slowing his reflexes and dueling his senses, Hrothgar turned to black market surgical clinics to replace damaged or wizened body parts with ones that will give him an advantage in his dangerous trade. Poor decisions have made him look with this ghastly appearance. So a lot of fans, if you look at this armor, it looks fairly similar, especially in the leg section, to a Dengar. And so this is by no means confirmation this is what happened to Dengar, but that synopsis does seem to line up with what happens to that character. And so that's why you see some folks in chat saying they ruined Dengar, which I don't think we have any hard confirmation this is really him. I think they purposely worded it this way though to make us think it could be Dengar, right? And I think his design makes us think that. But just thought I'd call that out. That maybe we'll see the black market dealings of Dengar and how he ended up so ugly.
I don't want this anywhere near my computer screen. That's just terrifying.
It's horrifying.
First time seeing this guy, he looks terrible. The story sounds terrible. I don't want anything from this character. Please don't kill him. I'll try to unsee it after we stop streaming.
He is possibly the scariest thing Star Wars has ever created.
Yeah, this is something out of Doctor Who or something out of Terminator.
It's scarier than anything you're going to see. I mean, is there anything uglier?
In the character design's defense, it kind of harkens back to The Empire Strikes Back in terms of that aesthetic design of almost like golden age, golden era sci-fi and a pulpy magazine sci-fi, which Star Wars incorporated from.
Absolutely.
Silly. How the cybernetic modifications will completely change your face from human to that.
Well, I think it said that basically, I don't think the blood's flowing very well, and so his skin literally
completely changes. Like the shape of his skull ain't working for me. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? Let's just pull this up on screen and stare at it really close.
He looks like sleep paralysis demon.
What do you guys think here from the thumb himself? Let's just keep this up as the background. Make this the
Hrothgar
background.
Oh,
so
man.
just an update for where Dengar might have ended up. I don't know if that's true or not. I will be honest. I'll defend it a little bit. We don't know a ton about Dengar, like in canon officially.
Mm-hmm.
Is it unplausible to me that a bounty hunter could be afraid of dying to the point of where he'd kind of mutilate himself to try to stay alive? I can see that. It's not like a ridiculous idea to me.
There's a story thread connecting to that, actually, because he wants to exit the bounty hunter game because he wants to earn just enough to support himself and this love of his life that he has, right? He's basically gathering the money for her.
Yeah.
Maybe something terrible happens with her that
Mr. Freestyle
reverts into himself and he like wants to live forever now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a terrible idea. He's just hideous. He's just absolutely hideous. I mean, that thing is nightmare fuel. If he looked a little cooler or even a little more like himself with like some weird, like, I've clearly done things to myself. I think the face is really the problem. If they even kind of kept it similar where it's like, you know, but to me, I mean, again, these guys are, you know, bad guys, right? And they're kind of crummy guys and they'll do anything for money. So doing anything for living. It's kind of like in the Pirates of the Caribbean, you have Captain Jack who will literally just wants to live and will like literally is cool with becoming, you know, Davy Jones if it means he can keep living, right? And then the next movie is looking for the fast. So it's like, it's not an unrealistic character trait we could add to him. But anyway, beyond
he's one step closer to being a next person in a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah, gee, yeah, no joke. Well, thanks for letting us go off the rails there. I'm sure a lot of people unsubscribed after seeing that little section there. So as we wrap up here in the next couple minutes with our expectations, we've seen a lot of folks in the chat who I think are as excited as we are. I wanted to kind of go freeform here and let us talk about anything we wanted to with the character. You know, for me as someone, you know, I'm rocking the Warriors of Mandalore jacket. We got the hat. As someone who really loves this, hey, there we go. Someone who loves this character like I have. I'm so happy to see the returning cast, right? Tamara Morrison getting back here, I think is so exciting for him. For all the prequel era fans who are getting to see Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Tamara Morrison coming back, that's so exciting. So I want to call that out as something that I'm really pleased about. You know, for everyone who talks about how bad Star Wars is right now, moments like this where we're sitting here hours before launch of one of the most iconic, you know, Star Wars characters getting his own show, I think it's just so cool. Right before we get a whole High Republic wave of books, right before we get a Kenobi show, right before we get an Ahsoka show, before we get an Andor show, before we get a Bad Batch season 2, before we get new games, you know, Tales of the Jedi has been teased. We'll talk about that in our stream later this week. You know, like this is it. I mean, this is so cool. This wasn't a thing 5 years ago for friends to get together. Well, maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't a thing for us to get together and be able to sit here at the end of the year and be really excited about something new Star Wars. So I just want to call that out for me as a general excitement. And I will also call out from this comment here, I'd love to see Dirge in live action. Dirge is such a funny, cool design. They're not going to do it, but it'd be really cool. So I will give a shout out there to the Dirge fans. Let's open up to you guys. Where are you at? You know, what else did you want to talk about related to Book of Boba Fett? To chat, what else is on your mind? You know, we're hours away. Let me ask this question. Are you guys going to be staying up to watch it at, I believe it's 2 a.m. our time?
Sure is.
2 a.m. I think for the East Coasters, it's going to be 3 a.m. Yeah, that's a commitment. That 3 o'clock is a commitment. Are you guys going to stay up and watch it, or are you going to get up and make a video tomorrow morning?
I'm going to stay up and watch it. I don't know if I'll make a video directly after, because like that might be pushing it a little bit. Because like, I don't know. I don't know how long this first episode is going to be.
Idea.
My brain says it could be up to 70 minutes, but there we go. I'm going to probably like 47, 49. I know that's very specific, but that seems to be the trend. All these have to be like specific, you know, 26 minutes, 38 minutes.
It's going to be 5-hour long intro.
That's fine. That's okay with me.
Well, we talked about this, and for folks in chat, you know, I think you guys would probably agree. We were talking about the Bad Batch and its first episode, how successful it was in really getting us hooked in that longer form story. I mean, that first hour and 10-minute episode for the Bad Batch, I thought was just phenomenal. I mean, I was so hyped after watching that. There was a lot of emotion. It set the tone for that show for me. I'd love to see this hit something similar. I'm with, you know, timeline. It's tough when you see a show that starts off kind of slow. So as you guys know, I'm a Wheel of Time fan. I'm reading the books right now. The first episode of Wheel of Time I thought was maybe the worst episode to this point, which is actually not a bad thing, because you forget about a first episode, right? You do, but you can lose viewers that quick. forget about us. We're going to watch every episode of Book of Boba Fett. It could be the worst show ever, right? We'll keep watching it because we just want to see what they do with it.
Yeah.
But for fans who, for the fans out there who maybe are much more casual Star Wars, they're going to put their time into this show. I really like when shows set that expectation, set the bar early of like, hey, this is going to be worth your time. I'd really love to see that. And for folks asking, I believe it's midnight U.S. West Coast time. I think it's Pacific time is technically the term there.
Yeah.
So I think it's midnight. So if you're Central, that's 2 hours later. So for us, that's 2 a.m. For East Coast, it's 3 hours. So it's 3 a.m. For all the folks all over the world, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with other time zones, but it's going to be midnight Pacific U.S. time. So just to clarify for everyone.
Yeah. So I just wanted to also to reiterate, as we're going into this show, as far as Star Wars fandom is concerned, just be aware when you talk to people, when you ask for somebody's opinion or state your own, whether it's, has been asked for or not. We all come from different backgrounds, and this character means different things to different people. I did not care for him for majority of my childhood up and growing up with Star Wars. He was a non-character for me. When I started reading about him in the comic books, he was just this boring cardboard ass anti-hero like Batman who never has any competition. If he shows up in
I love Batman too. I guess you see my hero type here. I'm into those.
I'm sorry. I know you are, right? No, but when you have a Batman type of figure who pops into the comic panel and he's gonna automatically just haul ass and he's nobody will even contest his power. It's so what's the point, right? But then again, when you keep an open heart, when you keep an open mind, and something wonderful like Clone Wars show comes up, and you're getting hooked. You never realize what you're gonna like unless you keep an open mind and experience it, right? Yeah. And then in the prequels, we watched the movie. I never imagined that we're gonna get Boba Fett's father, Jango Fett, portrayed by this wonderful actor. I was hooked. As many issues that I had with all these movies, I was hooked too. Keep an open mind, keep an open heart, temper your expectations. Just don't forget to have a good time. We're in New Year's, right? This is supposed to be a festive time period for us with us, our family. Just enjoy it. Have a good time.
And complete, before I pass it over to you, I do want to comment, Timeline, you just reminded me of something that I wanted to bring up earlier. I think this show has a real opportunity. Mandalorian does not, because our lead has his face exposed. And that sounds kind of silly. But when you get to see and really connect with that character on that facial level, I think it does allow for more intimate storytelling. I think The Mandalorian, to its credit, did a really crafty job with the Mandalorian customs and how they still did give him a personality with the helmet on, and then had the moments where he took it off be some emotional payoff. I think that was enjoyable. But this show from the start, this is not only a hero with a face, it's a face we know and have known for years and years and years, given his involvement in the prequel era. So I think this show has already kind of started off with a real advantage to kind of pull us in, because their actor has a connection to us already. We already know this actor. He doesn't have to kind of earn that connection to the audience, if that makes sense. Complete, over to you. I mean, where are you at here as we approach the last couple hours? Anything you wanted to call out, around Book of Boba Fett?
I do agree with what you just said, really, when you're thinking about it, because I think the situation was Pedro Pascal didn't want to be in the suit the whole time. I know I've heard that. I've heard the opposite. I'm not sure. But, when you have Tamira Morrison, he wants to be in that suit. He wants to do it all himself because that's just what he loves doing. And I think the energy and just the vibrance that he's going to bring to the show is what's going to make it so watchable, because he's in that role because he wants that role. He wants it so bad. And I think that's why we're going to get a great performance out of him. And because he's going to give such a great performance, it's going to bounce off of everyone around him. It's just going to be great chemistry throughout. And I think that's what's going to give for a better viewing experience.
Yeah. Agreed. I think this is setting off. We are kickstarting in a number of hours. I think one of the biggest years of Star Wars since the Disney acquisition, right? Yeah. From quantity, as well as expectations. I think the expectations are higher than ever. I think Mandalorian did a lot to win a bunch of the TV viewing audience. And now we are continuing that right now. We are starting with the Book of Boba Fett. We are going to get a second season of Bad Batch, which this whole panel here, we love the Bad Batch. I think we might even view it higher than some. I haven't seen anyone who thinks it's a bad show. I've heard maybe some fans who it didn't connect with quite as much. They thought it was a little slow, or maybe it didn't really earn its spot there. There wasn't enough going on. I tend to think it was extremely successful. But regardless, my point is we are about to hit one of the peak years of Star Wars as far as expectations and quantity of content. And expectations, succeeding under expectations is a hard ask for these major properties like Marvel, like Disney, like DC. When expectations are this high, it is hard to succeed. And this will be a big year for Disney Star Wars. For fans of our channels, we have the High Republic coming out in days, like a week. The next wave of books get started. So for book fans, we have that on the horizon. For show fans, this is it. This is the biggest year so far. This is going to be with Book of Boba Fett. We don't have official dates, but with Andor and Kenobi, we highly suspect they'll be out in 2022. We know Bad Batch season 2 will be out in 2022. We know Ahsoka will be a quick follow. We know Mandalorian season 3 will be a fast follow. And we also have rumors of other animated projects on the horizon or live action. This could be a huge winning year for Star Wars in my book. I think this sets the tone. Tonight sets the tone. Tomorrow morning sets the tone. How do we kick off this new year? I'm of the belief that we're in kind of another golden age of Star Wars material. But it's got to earn that, right? It's got to deliver on these things. If Book of Boba Fett comes out and it's not good, if Bad Batch season 2 loses momentum, if the next wave of the High Republic books doesn't match that expectations, that golden age I see can kind of level off. What I've seen so far has led me to believe there's reason to be optimistic for this year. But it's exciting nonetheless, right? I mean, the Kenobi show is a huge one too. So I just want to call that out, like to Ben's point. It's a holiday season. We got New Year's right around the corner in just a couple of days. So we're seeing friends and family. Fun. Exactly. And what a fun thing for us Star Wars fans to have. I love the timing on this. I said it when they announced the date. I think it's a really fun timing because Christmas was over. And if you guys are like me, when Christmas ends, there's kind of that sadness, like, oh, that's like a really fun festive time of year. And that there's that kind of like that fall off. So having something a couple days later that we're really passionate about really is fun for us. Like it's a Tuesday morning at 11:30 and we're hyped up for some new Star Wars. So that's really fun for the fans. So I really like the timing on that as well.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's get some boba.
To the point of the blue pig here, we didn't get a full holiday special. That's true. I mean, when are we going to get another Life Day holiday live action special? I'd say, throughout the week, there will be a lot of Boba Fett content coming out. I think we're all going to have reviews. I expect we all will.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. We might be streaming again on Thursday, depending on schedules. The holiday season is a little tricky for everyone, so we like to kind of give folks some time back. But I'm just happy to be here. I'm just happy to be here this morning. It's very exciting to be hours away from this, and so I hope everyone in the chat is excited. And this is a case where Disney has given us something we asked for, and I hope it matches our expectations. It's kind of long story short.
Absolutely.
Closing thoughts, guys. Anything else before we wrap up about the Book of Boba Fett? Anything else we want to visit with this beautiful, illustrious character that we all love and cherish before we break for the morning?
She's not Mara Jade.
Yeah,
she's not Mara.
If she is, though, can you imagine if she is, though? You're gonna feel so stupid. I'm just gonna clip that and like put it at the intro of my video. Go ahead.
Number one, Mara Jade fanboy here. She's not Mara Jade.
If she is, I will 100% do that, please.
There's this interesting, and I don't want to get off too in the weeds here. There's this interesting thing where that character keeps brought up more and more and more. And I can't tell if it's like, if when there's smoke, there's fire, if they actually are going to revamp that character in some way, or if it's just like stupid clickbaity stuff that we know gets clicks. I can't, I don't know, because there have been times where there's been theories out there like, I'm blanking, but you'll hear a theory. You're like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, but you keep hearing it and hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. And eventually it materializes different than the first way you heard it. But it's almost like that was the first indication that somewhere they were talking about that and like bad versions of the leaks were coming out.
That's an excellent point, because, it's knowing how big Timothy Zahn's original Throne trilogy still is among fans. I feel that the character is so larger than life. They're just looking for proper timing an opportunity to bring her in. I think it's inevitable, honestly. She's huge. She's probably the biggest female character on the legend side of the expanded universe. But I think it's not the proper time yet. As far as what you said earlier, I just wanted to kind of like hook into that a little bit, the golden age of Star Wars. I think we're on the road to greatness. We're not there yet.
Yeah.
And I think if Lucasfilm and Disney keep their ears open to what fans really are gravitating towards, not what fans want. Don't ever pamper the fans. Don't give us, we want more Luke Skywalker cameos with a lightsaber porn. Just listen to what really sticks, to what works. Create more characters and shows that have the integrity of their own character and they don't rely on cameos. And then we'll perhaps be in the golden age of Star Wars and really feel like, oh my God, now I'm sitting on top. I, as a fan, feel like a king now. And I feel pampered. And now that, the Disney and Lucasfilm are fanning me on both sides now. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I feel that the crowning achievement of Disney era Star Wars will be, honestly, when we get the trilogy of Star Wars numbered films, which will blow everybody away. Because it's great to have shows. I personally believe the future of Star Wars is in the serialized kind of like content. The comic books have been great. The books, the Star Wars novels have been nothing but amazing for me. As a 20 plus year reader, I have no gripes in that department. But I really feel the true golden age for Star Wars will be when that episode 10 comes and everybody comes with, away from movie theaters crying like, oh my God, this is what I wanted.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think TV is a great place for Star Wars. We've talked about that on this channel a lot. And this group has talked about it. It just fits. To me, it just fits. It feels right at home. Like, it doesn't feel weird. Partially because we've had the Clone Wars, which spans so many seasons. And so it's becoming more and more established there. But you're right.
But it's synonymous. Star Wars is synonymous with the big screen.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
You need that number. You need episode 10. You need to bring everybody together and tell stories that everybody could relate to.
I think that's a perfect ending. Timon, you said it maybe a little better than I did, which is we are on the path to the golden age. We're not there yet. So this year is a big year. We talked about with expectations. I saw the Blue Pig mention, I'm worried Star Wars will become like the MCU. I kind of get where you're going with that. As you guys know, I'm a bigger DC fan. Obviously, huge Marvel fan as well. We already talked about that. We before the stream, we talked about No Way Home and our, our feelings on that. But when I think of becoming too MCU, I feel like it could become a little too reliant on that shared universe. Shared universes are fantastic things, but I'm already a little bit over how cameo heavy everything feels right now. I think we're kind of breeding the bloat on that, and that's going to start shrinking back down, and it'll expand again and shrink back down. But right now, I mean, we're hitting the golden age of multiverse, where everything's a multiverse now. Flashpoint's going to be a multiverse movie. We've seen Multiverse of Madness. We've seen No Way Home. Everything now is like the crossovers have to get bigger and more elaborate. And we're bringing Michael Keaton back, and we're bringing so back, and we're tying in Sony into, we're doing crazy stuff. And I think that's eventually going to get too bloated. I feel like it's going to get too. Once we've seen it 5 times, it's not going to hit the same way. And so I agree. I don't want Star Wars to be too reliant on the shared universe. Like, okay, I don't need every show to be built upon who's going to cameo, right? I don't want every show to be like that. It's fun. I love it to a point. Let's not overdo it. So I agree with that. I agree with that comment. I hope we don't. It's leaning too much on nostalgia. It's leaning too much on the excitement, and it's not giving us a substance underneath. One of the reasons I'm so excited for the new Batman movie is like it's cut out the fat of having to tie it in to 6 other movies. That makes storytelling hard, guys. I'm on a soapbox right now, so I apologize.
Yeah.
But it makes storytelling hard, and we see this in Star Wars all the time, where you have to try to tell a story that's so interconnected. One of the reasons I was really excited about the High Republic is I felt like the hundreds of years gave the authors freedom to, yes, there are rules and laws within Star Wars, but there's a little bit of freedom to tell a story that's not so tied down to like, okay, this happened the 1 year in between this movie and this movie. Well, that really ties your hands on what story you can tell. One of the excitements for Book of Boba Fett is we're a little free. This is a little bit of a gray area in Star Wars. We know a little bit about what happened, but you have some freedom here to explore, this whole side quest. And I love that. I think it leads us to better storytelling. Don't get me wrong. Love MCU. I even like a lot of the DC shared properties. Loved Aquaman, etc. Like Wonder Woman. I think those are really fun films, great films. But I also love when you just have a killer standalone movie like Dune, right? I mean, Dune to me is fantastic, and there's nothing. It's not like, oh, I love Dune because they brought up my favorite character Gary from not. It's like it's just its own standalone movie that
it's a breath of fresh air, man.
Yeah, and so I'd love to, and I'm hoping that we don't become too reliant on the cameos. That's my one concern for not just Star Wars, for DC, for Marvel, it's just the thing right now. I mean, this happens in movies where a trend becomes popular. Crossover events right now are just the bee's knees. Everyone's got to do a crossover, specifically a crossover with someone who played the character 30 years ago, right? That's what's hitting fans right now. And we're going to see like 8 versions of that in the next year. We're going to see it in Multiverse of Madness. We're going to see it in Flashpoint. We're just going to see that, the next, and then it's going to go down because people are going to get tired of it. Yeah. And then, Gary the Stormtrooper. That's what I'm talking about. That's it.
The best.
That's it. So that's what I don't want to see with the Boba Fett. I will end it on that note. That is what I don't want Boba Fett. Of course, this is a nostalgic character, and we're excited about that. But I don't want every episode to be a cameo of someone from the past, and that's all the show has to show me. If you're going to do it well. I think you can do it well, but don't be the only thing the show gives us. Would be my
none of this is the way line, and I have spoken. You can't make somebody fall in love with your work. You can't approach a girl on a date and say, like, "Can you please love me?" It has to come of your own accord. It has to be on the strength of the material.
Understood completely. And we had one High Republic question here. I just wanted to dive into real quick, which is Out of the Shadows. The question is, and sorry, I'm over here pulling up comments, is would you recommend reading Out of the Shadows? I believe it takes place after the Rising Storm. Yes, that is correct. Out of the Shadows does actually provide some key information for, it seems like, the future of the High Republic. So I think if you're like really invested into the universe, you're going to have to read it. As you guys know, I'm very open about opinions. You guys can have whatever you like. It was my least favorite book of the High Republic.
Really?
It doesn't mean it's bad.
Yet, so I don't know.
It doesn't mean it's bad. It just was not my favorite. Into the Dark, for example, I loved, and no one else seems to love that one like I did. So it's all preference here, right? I just want to say that. It was just my least favorite because the story didn't really connect with me the way others have. And that's okay. It just wasn't written for me. It had kind of a different vibe to it that I think, and I said this in my review, I think there are some people who are going to love the main character specifically and kind of the whole vibe of the book. But for me, it just wasn't my favorite. But if you're going to read everything, you're going to have to read it. I'm sorry, because it's going to fill in some gaps for you.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing because I loved Out of the Shadows. I think it was so different that it was like very refreshing, and I loved the story. But yes, it mentions a bunch of key points from the Rising Storm. So if you're not that invested in it, it's fine. But if you really want to know the story, I would read the Rising Storm first. Otherwise, you're going to see some pretty big spoilers in Out of the Shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also something that, in reading also the legends, one thing you have to appreciate is that, look, it's different creators putting in their voice into something. Yeah, we understand that High Republic is supposed to be this one unified story, but appreciate the fact that different people coming into it and trying to put their own stamp on it. So it's like, it doesn't have to be all similar within the same kind of like aesthetic or style.
Absolutely. And one thing I would say about the book, as I pull up our final piece of Boba Fett news here, one thing I would say about the book is I felt like it did something that a lot of books do, where it took a while to get going, and then I feel like it wrapped up very quickly. It was like, okay, we're here, and then it's done, and it was like it felt a little uneven in pacing. There's kind of that's a person again. It's all personal opinion. Huge news right now, guys, for Book of Boba Fett. I mean, this is
breaking news.
Oh, this is huge.
Okay,
I'm not saying that sarcastically at all. This is big for me.
Hit me with it.
All right. Get your new Book of Boba Fett Hot Wheels was just announced. I have spent a lot of money on Boba Fett merch, and I expect my room behind me will be very full by the end of the show. So there's one thing about Boba Fett we can all agree on. He sells merch. He puts the merch through, and Disney will keep making content for him because he'll keep selling it. He's got a great design. So there you go.
Now, is this one going to show up in the show or not?
This is like, watch me pull this up, and like in the show, it's like a big central piece of the show. He's got his own Boba Fett mobile. We're like, oh my gosh,
that's Disney's version of the Slave 2.
That's it, Slave 2.
Sailing the dunes of Tatooine. I'm down to see that, man.
That's it. Well, thank you guys for being here this morning. Thanks for everyone in chat coming in this morning as we prepare for for the big show tomorrow. We thought it'd be fun to get together and talk about it as a group before it launches later tomorrow morning. So hope you guys have a great holiday season. Continue having a good holiday season. Hope you guys check out everyone's channel during our Boba Fett reviews, and keep tuning into the streams. This is gonna be a major point of the next year. I think we're gonna really continue to stick with the format. We really like doing them, so we're gonna continue that going into the new year. So I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you guys for stopping by. I hope you guys have a great time watching this episode. I hope it is awesome. And again, I hope you guys have a safe and fun holiday season. Signing off for this morning, but we'll be back again very soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for watching, guys. Be safe, everyone. Enjoy your holidays.